Each year, armed conflict and natural disaster leave millions of people around the globe in urgent need of assistance. Every year, millions of children die from disease and malnutrition. And each year, Henry Dunant's appeal to all people in all countries is answered by the humanitarian movement he helped conceive. Since its inception over a century ago, the International Red Cross and Red Crescent movement has become the largest humanitarian organization in the world. It began in 1859 when Henry Dunant witnessed the suffering of wounded and dying soldiers at the Battle of Solferino. In 1863, his vision for a humanitarian movement was realized with the creation of the International Committee of the Red Cross. The following year, 12 countries adopted the first Geneva Convention, declaring that wounded and sick combatants were to be cared for humanely and impartially by both sides in an armed conflict. Henry Dunant also envisioned dedicated humanitarian responders.
Would it not be possible, in time of peace and quiet, to form relief societies for the purpose of having care given in wartime by zealous, devoted, and thoroughly qualified volunteers?
Wherever the International Red Cross and Red Crescent movement serves, it strives to inject humanity into inhumane situations. Now, more than ever, the world looks to all three interconnected components of the movement for hope and humanity. The International Committee of the Red Cross, or ICRC, is an independent Swiss organization with a legal mandate from governments to protect and assist victims of armed conflict. The International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies coordinates international relief efforts in response to natural disasters and humanitarian services unrelated to armed conflict. The third component of the movement is composed of the individual National Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, including the Magen David Adom of Israel that carry out relief efforts in nearly every country. Working both globally and locally, national societies provide the grassroots link with communities to restore and empower those they serve. The American Red Cross, founded by Clara Barton after the Civil War, is one of these national societies. United by a mission to relieve human suffering on a global scale, these three form the International Red Cross and Red Crescent movement. The movement emblems, the Red Cross, Red Crescent, and Red Crystal, are recognized as protective shields during armed conflict and at all times signify the humanitarian mission of serving those in need.
The child who draws a red cross with his crayon knows the meaning of the emblem he sees everywhere, on a parcel of bandages or medications, on the side of an ambulance, or on a flag flying over a hospital. In all languages, all over the world, the word aid summons up the emblem of the Red Cross.
The fundamental principles guiding the movement are accepted without question as the foundation for all action: humanity, impartiality, neutrality, independence, voluntary service, unity, and universality.
In virtually every country, you will find a Red Cross or a Red Crescent Society. You will also find our partners from the Federation or ICRC. Governments understand our principles of the movement, including our principles of independence and neutrality.
As guardian of the Geneva Conventions, the International Committee of the Red Cross's role continues to grow. The ICRC relies on the principles of neutrality and impartiality to work on both sides of a conflict. The ICRC's presence is by consent and invitation of the host government or authorities. Working with quiet diplomacy, the ICRC reminds them of their humanitarian responsibilities. Adopted by the world community, The Geneva Conventions were expanded in 1949, 1977, and 2005. They include protection for prisoners of war and civilians. The conventions are the primary legal documents for international humanitarian law, defining fundamental rights for all combatants and civilians removed from the fight.
The Geneva Conventions are principally aimed at those people who are no longer taking part in the fighting, such as civilians, such as a soldier who has laid down his arms. So it is a way of setting the limits, if you like, on the way war is waged, but also very much to protect the people that are innocently and unwittingly caught up in it.
In addition to its conflict intervention, which includes visits to monitor the conditions and treatment of those detained, the ICRC is instrumental in providing aid in other ways.
There are the relief activities, that is food parcels to people who are hungry. It is being able to turn on water taps for people who don't have access to safe drinking water. There are the medical activities of having surgeons working in hospitals treating war wounded or delivering medical supplies to hospitals, or prosthetic centres fixing prostheses to people who have been injured by landmines.
The International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies acts as the lead agency to help coordinate the response of the movement in times of natural or technological disasters, when the relief effort requires resources exceeding those available locally. Because the Federation is the hub of a global network of member Red Cross and Red Crescent societies, resources are delivered through partnering and sharing.
Promoting the fundamental principles and humanitarian values is one of our major core areas, together with disaster preparedness and disaster relief and health and care in the community. When you have the huge earthquake hitting India, and at the same time you have a tragedy in Mozambique with the floods, we must help. This is our duty and our privilege.
It has been said, Red Cross workers go places others are trying to leave. National Red Cross and Red Crescent societies are ready to respond at a moment's notice when crisis strikes, helping survivors of war, upheaval, and natural disasters. Not only do individual national societies train workers to respond to emergencies within their own borders, but they partner with others on relief efforts worldwide. These interlinked partnerships build capacity and human resources by providing technical support and expertise to one another. This increases the capacity of affected societies to be more self-sufficient. As part of the international movement, the American Red Cross frequently provides assistance overseas in time of need.
The purpose of the American Red Cross International Services is very straightforward. It is to prevent, prepare for, and respond to disasters and complex humanitarian emergencies, including life-threatening health conditions around the world. Natural disasters take a terrible human toll, be it an earthquake in Asia or drought in Africa. And American Red Cross has disaster preparedness and response programs addressing the needs of thousands. We have low-cost and high-impact community-based health programs addressing the needs of thousands in maternal child health, including water and sanitation and food security, as well as programs designed to prevent infectious illnesses like measles, malaria, and HIV/AIDS.
In a world where millions are affected daily by warfare and civil strife, the American Red Cross focuses on promoting Red Cross values to the American public.
We teach them about the principles of the movement, including international humanitarian law, as it applies to the protection of members of the armed forces, including prisoners of war and civilians.
Today, our world is interconnected, a global village where the chaos and confusion of armed conflicts and natural disasters may separate families by continents. Red Cross Restoring Family Links program helps families locate, communicate, and learn each other's fate. The impact of armed conflicts, natural disasters, acts of terrorism, and other crises is no longer confined to boundaries defined by government or geography. Human suffering far too often demands a global response.
And I think the fact that we are still working in places where people are suffering from conflict, which don't make the newspapers, don't make the TV screens, is ever more important in a world where we sometimes become dictated perhaps too much by what we see on the TV screen.
The success of the American Red Cross really lies in its ability to work closely with its Red Cross and Red Crescent partners around the world. It also lies with its ability to focus not only on the big events that make the big headlines, but also on the forgotten situations that are just as important.
For me, the beauty of the Red Cross movement and the ICRC is still in its simplicity. The work that we do, in fact, and the way in which we respond to victims of conflict is still very simple. It's still about food for the hungry. It's still about bringing people together who have been separated by conflict.
People working together throughout the world, saving lives, bringing hope, building a brighter future. It's about a shared vision, a humanitarian movement born well over a century ago.